The silence in the barracks was never truly quiet. It was thick, a living thing made of humidity, the hum of the aging generator, and a rhythmic clack of boots on concrete. But tonight, for Lieutenant Yemi Oyeyemi, 30 years, face etched with a tension that aged them beyond his years, the silence was deafening. He sat on the edge of his narrow cot, still in his sweat-stained camouflage. His eyes were fixed on his hands, broad soldier's hands that were currently trembling. A fine sheen of sweat covered his forehead, not from the Lagos heat, but from a cold dread taking root in his chest.
So compatriots, go by. The people of our heroes past shall never be his same.
The news was everywhere, muted on the small television in the corner. Tragedy at Lekki, the headlines screamed. But Yemi didn't need the news to know. He was there. He had felt the recoil. He had seen the flag. The white and green stained a sudden, shocking red. The face of the young woman, Ife, 20s, vibrant, her expression shifting from defiant protest to stunned disbelief, haunted him. Her final silent gaze, full of accusation, felt seared onto his retinas. The haunting didn't begin with screams or clanking chains. It began with water. Yemi was washing his face, trying to scrub away the grime of the night when the water pressure died. He looked up, his face dripping, and froze. The reflection in the cracked mirror over the sink wasn't his. It was Ife. She stood just behind his shoulder, her white shirt still immaculate, her unblinking eyes fixed directly on his reflection. She wasn't angry, she was present. Yemi spun around, heart hammering, but the bathroom was empty. Only the slow, steady drip from the faulty faucet broke the silence. He ran back to his room, locking the door, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He told himself it was fatigue, PTSD, a trick of the light. He was a soldier trained for battle, not this spectral intrusion. But as he lay on his cot, the smell of fresh earth, wet, rich soil from a grave slowly filled the small, sealed room. Sleep became a battlefield Yemi was losing. When he did drift off, exhausted by the sheer terror of being awake, the dream was always the same. He was standing on the asphalt of the Lekki Toll Gate. The night was hot, humid and silent, save for the generator's low hum. Thousands of phone lights bobbed in the darkness like fireflies trapped in a jar. He was holding his rifle, the cold metal sweating in his palms. He wasn't Lieutenant Oyeyemi. He was just a trigger finger, an extension of an order he didn't fully understand.
He saw Ife. She wasn't defiant this time. She was looking right at him, her white shirt a shocking beacon in the darkness. She raised her hand, not to wave or protest, but to point at him, a single silent accusation. He tried to lower his rifle, but his body wouldn't obey. He felt the tension build, the recoil shudder through his frame. The crack of the shot was deafening, silencing the national anthem before it could begin.
He would wake up screaming, his chest tight, his skin cold despite the barracks heat. The smell of fresh earth from scene 2 would be stronger now, a constant reminder that the haunting wasn't confined to his dreams. He would sit up, gasping for air, clutching the thin cut mattress, terrified to close his eyes again. The only sound in the room was his own ragged breathing and the distant rhythmic clack, clack, clack of boots on the concrete corridor. The sound of duty, the sound of the machine that had used him. The haunting escalated. It was no longer just a mirror trick or a smell. It was physical. He would find red Lagos dust, the kind that only settled after a long dry spell, the kind that was at the toll gate that night, on his pillow, inside his locked footlocker, even in his closed rifle breech. It was invasive, a constant, abrasive presence that grated against his sanity. He tried to sweep it away, to scrub it clean, but like the guilt, it always returned. One night, he was in the mess hall, trying to eat a tasteless meal of rice and beans. The room was noisy, filled with the chatter of soldiers. He looked down at his plate. The rice had turned a deep, rusty crimson. He looked around. Everyone else was eating normally. He looked back down. A single, perfectly formed white lace ribbon, like the one Ife had tied in her hair, lay across the food. He dropped his spoon, the metal clattering loudly against the plastic tray. He stumbled back, knocking over his chair. The mess hall went silent, dozens of eyes turning toward him. He could see his commanding officer, Colonel Tunde, 50s, a hard man with a face like carved mahogany, watching him from the high table, a slow, calculated concern spreading across his features. Yemi turned and fled, unable to meet their gazes, unable to escape the truth on his plate. Yemi was close to the fracture point. The red Lagos dust, previously a spectral smell, was now a tactile constant. A fine, abrasive grit contaminating his food, his drinking water, even coating his toothbrush. The barracks, a Rec 709 construct built for sequential logic and obedience, was processing his trauma as a malfunction. Desperation drove him past the teal and orange corridors to the one place he feared more than the ghost, the office of Colonel Tunde. Tunde, 50s, a man sculpted from polished leather and rigid discipline, viewed emotion as a tactical failure. His office was a high-contrast, low-log profile sanctuary, windowless, sealed, smelling of stale tobacco and high-key negative feel. A single harsh 6500K desk lamp created dramatic chiaroscuro, casting ray-traced shadows that stretched across the dark wood paneling, defining Tunde as a silhouette.
Tunde didn't react. He leaned forward slowly, his massive hands clasped on the polished desk, the knuckles catching the specular highlights like polished river stones. "Lieutenant!" His voice was a low, naturalistic rumble, devoid of REG 709 empathy. The incident at Lekki was a regrettable consequence of maintaining order. A soldier performing his duty does not have visions. A soldier with a weak mind is a liability. This conversation never happened. Do I make myself clear? Yemi stood at attention, the conspiracy of silence sealing his fate. "Yes, Colonel."
The final notes of Tunde's dismissal shattered any remaining sense of order. Yemi was alone. The haunting escalated. Ife was no longer a static ghost, she was moving. He would find her in the low-key lighting of the armory, standing among the racks of cold metal, her hand resting gently on an assault rifle, the composition mirroring the chaotic leading lines of the Lekki memory. He would find her in the grim, fish-eyed distortion of the latrine, watching him with an eye-line match from the shadows.